You can correct me if I'm wrong, but I believe the number one command of the Bible is fear not.
Yeah, do not fear.
365 times.
The most oft repeated.
Yeah.
Yeah, you're right, man.
Yeah. So he put enough thought into it, and the writers listened enough to it to put that command in 365 times, happens to be the same amount of days in the year.
Yeah, do not fear.
It's said different ways than fear not. Fear not's one way. Do not fear. Do not be afraid.
Yep.
It's said many different ways, but meaning the same thing.
Yeah, that's brilliant. And that's not a suggestion. That's not an opinion. That's a command, right?
That's right.
Oh, man.
Yeah, so let's think about that. So break down fear a little bit. Then there's insecurity in there.
Yeah.
And so when, like, men right now, and this is where I think toxic masculinity can get some traction, is it's not masculinity, because true masculinity is living into the power, being that provider, being that protector, and being a loving, caring human being is masculine. That's very masculine.
Very.
The toxic masculinity actually comes from insecure beta males, in my opinion.
Very much.
And so where are we struggling with this insecurity in men nowadays? Where are you seeing this the most?
Where am I seeing it the most? Social media.
Yeah, we were having that conversation with my DMs earlier.
Social media. I see it in social media. Yeah, I mean, I see it in, even just recently, guys wanting to text me because of a podcast that I did with a buddy where we called some guys out on their crap. They don't want to have a conversation. They don't want to sit. One guy called me. He actually called my wife's phone wanting to talk to me. The rest are texting and commenting on social media. And every single one of them that I could reply to, I'm like, if you'd like to sit down for a coffee or a beer, let me know. I'm not going to go back and forth on a Facebook post, trying to one-up each other and get the last word. I even replied to a couple texts like, hey, thank you for sharing all your thoughts and your feelings with me. I hope you feel heard. I'm going to let you have the last word.
Now I'm curious of what you said. What'd you say?
Well, me and a buddy named Jarius, we just called out some guys on, a way that they handled some things with, the elders at our church and leaving in a huff. And Jarius was just sharing his thoughts and feelings about it. We didn't even mean to. It's like 3 or 4 minutes on a 52-minute podcast that I did. But some of those guys heard of it and they raised a fit. And so they came hard at us on social media, in texts, Facebook message. I'm like, dude,
keyboard tough guys, huh?
You want and I told you, I'm like, what would be cool is if we could just find a boxing gym, put on the gloves, punch each other for a couple hours, and then go grab a beer. I bet we would walk out of that situation way more respectful of one another. It'd probably be good for some of those guys. I sense that none of them have actually gotten in a fight ever in their life. But I'm like, this would probably be healthy for all of us. And I'm not even saying like, I'm going to kick your ass. I'm just saying like, let's just...
this is how Fight Club was started, right?
One of my best movie of the 90s. I love. And do you know that scene where their homework was to go start a fight?
Yeah.
And how hard it was to get other guys to engage in that?
Yeah.
That's so true of masculinity today. But you see other side. You see, jiu-jitsu's taken off like crazy, has been for the last 10, 15 years. So that's good. Kickboxing gyms, that's good. You see some guys pressing into it. Like, this is good. I want to do this. But I think a vast majority of guys would rather be keyboard warriors, whine and piss and moan and complain, and call me and my buddy Jerry's unfit for leadership, not filled with the Holy Spirit, using all sorts of religious whatever. Like, okay, like, do we just need to go find a gym and punch each other and then grab a beer? Like, I bet we would all be happier and more at peace.
It's so funny to me.
I do not claim to be perfect. I told him, like, yeah, I don't even know if we said everything we said perfectly, but I'd be happy to, if these guys would have handled themselves a little bit differently, I would have been happy to say, hey, let's get you on the podcast in a couple months. You can tell your side of the story.
Mm-hmm.
I have no agenda here except to empower men to become who God created them to be. That's my mission of the podcast that I do. And, and these guys just could not handle the fact that somebody thought they were in a moment with certain decisions they were making, weak-minded.
Did you
They
even
just
call them out
couldn't.
by name or just the group?
No names, no church
They
name,
they
no
so you
names.
could have not even been talking about them, but they took it as that.
Some of them we weren't even talking about. We weren't even. They were like, well, we, and we're like, actually, we were talking about some guys who left a couple months before you. It wasn't even you. Well,
But
we
since
know
you brought
them,
this up,
but we
then
know them. So, and we think you're wrong. Okay, great, cool. You think I'm wrong. That's awesome. It's America.
you can have an opinion.
I love freedom. You can have freedom to think I'm wrong all day, every day.
So regarding your platform, what does it mean to be a man? Because so many men are lost nowadays.
It
So
is.
many men are overworked, not having that clear line of purpose, and coming home and not being able to be the fathers and husbands
Right.
that they're meant to be. What is it?
I think of a key verse for me whenever I'm asked that question is in 1 Corinthians 16. Paul's writing specifically to the men in that little section, and he says, what does he say now? He says, be watchful, stand firm in the faith, act like men, be strong, let everything that you do be done in love. Like, I love that. That's like a really great for the masculine soul today. So I think what it means, you've hinted at some of it, be watchful. I think there's a presider in every man made in God's image. You would just be vigilant, on guard, be watchful. There's a kingly pillar there. It's like, step up.
Mm-hmm.
You were made in God's image to tend the garden, so to speak. It's funny how Adam was made out in the wild and then brought into the garden to tend and take care of it. Eve was made inside of the garden. So right there, it speaks to like both men and women made in God's image, but reflecting his nature differently. And that's why we're still called to the frontiers, to build a business, like we're called to the mountains, we're called to the sea, we're called to explore space. We have this wild, rugged, rough and tumble nature about us as men. And it's kingly to be wanting to be watchful over something, to preside, to protect. That's another, I would say every man has, this desire, this call given by God to preside, to protect. There's a strength given to us physically, but I would argue also spiritually.
Mm-hmm.
And that strength is to be used in a sacrificial way. I think Doug Wilson is one of my favorite pastors. He says his definition of masculinity is the joyful assumption of sacrificial responsibility.
Ooh, I like that.
Isn't that great? The
Yeah.
joyful assumption of sacrificial responsibility.
So right, you're assuming the role
yeah,
of sacrificial responsibility.
and it's to sacrifice, right? Yeah. It's to, like, my strength, whether it's physical or mental or spiritual, is to be offered sacrificially for the benefit of those around me, right? And I'm not going to shirk from that. I'm not going to like pretend, I'm not anybody important. I will step into that God-given strength, but it's not for me to be like, I'm awesome. Check me out.
Mm-hmm.
I'm the best. Hell yeah. It's for the benefit. It's raising up others. Being strong and courageous, like play the man. I think it's okay for us to feel fear sometimes. We talked about fear a couple minutes ago. Yeah. Anybody listening, like you're going to feel it. You're a human. Jesus felt fear, but you don't act on that. If you talk to anybody who served in war, like, hey, did you ever feel afraid? Yeah. But going back to that biblical command, fear not, you're not going to act in fear. You're going to feel it, but you're going to choose courage anyway. You're in a firefight. Yeah, you're probably going to, the enemy's shooting at you to kill you. You're going to feel fear. I've talked to enough warriors and soldiers who've actually been in life and death situations. They feel fear in that moment, but they don't act on that fear.
Even in a fight, if you weren't a soldier, if you don't have fear, there's something wrong with you.
Right. Yeah.
You're not respecting the nature of the toe-to-toe combat.
So feeling it is okay. It's probably even good to have those nerves, but you don't act, if we're in the middle of the night, and you hear something crash downstairs, like, I'm going to feel some fear,
mm-hmm.
but I'm also going to say, hey, honey, grab the phone, call 911, and I'm going to get the shotgun and I'm going to go check it out downstairs. Mm-hmm. I'm not going to let my fear paralyze me in that moment, because I'm called to be a man, and I've got a wife and 3 daughters and now a mother staying with us. And I feel a holy responsibility to protect them if that were to happen that way.